Hi guys, I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. I'm super excited to come and talk about this spiritual topic because I feel like it's something that a lot of people might have questions about, or something that's actually quite frequently going on in the universe right now, because I'm getting a lot of readings and I'm getting a lot of downloads that people are experiencing some type of karmic debt. We all have it, okay? So let's talk about it. And how do we figure it out? And how can we correct it? Or how can we make the most out of it as possible? If you are on here, give me a heart emoji, say hello, good morning. It's nice to have you. And I'm also going to go ahead and share this out to a few of my groups so that other people can also come in and join us as well. So we have one share. It looks like someone just shared, or maybe that was me. I don't know. But we do have one share. Okay, group. Let's go to group. I'm going to go here, and then I'm going to go ahead and share. And I'm going to go share here. And then I'm going to go, hi, Miss May. I love you, girl. Okay, then let me go ahead and share here. Lionsgate Ritual. So I'm just sharing to some of these ones right here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Then we'll get started. So I'm just sharing. Okay. And then let's go ahead and share in one other place. And then we will get started. Okay. All right, so I went ahead and just went and shared that. So let's go get started. What is karmic debt? How can we fix it? And what the heck is going on with this karmic debt? And on my so let's talk about that. Karmic debt. Take a sip. Karmic debt is ruled by Saturn, and that's what basically our soul wants to pay back. So no matter who we are, and whether we are life path 8, whether we're life path 11, no matter what our astrology or numerology chart states, we all have karmic debt to pay in order to evolve. So basically in the spiritual community, there's this belief that we have an earth school. The point of us being here on earth, and one of the actual definitions of spirituality, which is actually, I'm going to read this because this really kind of gets people to kind of understand the bigger picture. What is spirituality? It is the quality of being connected with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or spiritual things. So that is the definition. If you was to Google what does spirituality mean, that's the Google's definition of spirituality. So we know that the definition of spirituality is not to be connected to material or physical things. So when our karmic debt comes into play, and we come down here on earth, and we're here having earth school, and we're here learning, and our soul is evolving, we still have these lessons because we can't escape. It's like here on earth, and I had one of my clients, Miss Nina, so she comes on here, sees this, thank you for this information. She's actually Buddhist, and one of the things, the conversation I was having with her is she was saying with Buddhists, what they believe is that earth is actually like a level of hell. So there's different levels depending on your belief system. So because we're in this kind of earth hell situation, because we have sicknesses and diseases and things like that, and we come back down here, we're learning, we're trying to escape, we're basically trying to evolve. But what happens is we get stuck, and we get stuck by the material and physical world, because what is it that our society tells us that matters, that's starting to come down? Titles, What kind of car do you have? How much money do you have? We get so consumed by the material and physical world that we really can never involve our souls. So we go through these traps. Like, we'll have people who have abusive relationships after abusive relationships. We'll have people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol. We'll have people that, even though they have money, they're still committing suicide. You know, we've seen that, unfortunately, even amongst celebrities and things like that, because people aren't really getting to the root cause. Basically, being here on earth, the majority of the people live on autopilot, right? I gotta hustle, I gotta survive, I gotta adult, I gotta, get married, have children. They can't really get to the root meaning to, like, why am I even truly here and how can I evolve? And because of that, we see a lot of karmic debt happen, and basically souls can never get out of this cycle, and they're trapped, and they'll never truly be able to evolve, because the matrix, so to speak, being here on earth says, hey, be focused on that material, be focused on that physical, and that means you can never escape. You'll have to come back here. And guess what we have here on earth? We have more slaves. We have people who are working, who are paying taxes. You're going to have to constantly come back because you'll never evolve. Basically, the rings of Saturn are very powerful, and they radiate this powerful energy. So our Saturn tells us in our astrology chart what your karmic debt is. So there's a few different placements that you can look at to determine, well, what is my karmic debt? What do I have to pay back to balance out this system so I'm not stuck in this trap? Saturn keeps us super aligned. So Saturn kind of has a really bad rep. A lot of people will hear of, like, my Saturn return, or they'll hear things like that, and it's hard. Okay, if you're between the ages of like 29 and 31, you're probably going through a little bit of hard time. Also around the age of 57 and 58, because your Saturn return comes again. Basically, what Saturn energy does is it forces us to be in alignment with ourselves. So it will force us to do our path. Like, hey, we want you to do your path. We want you to get on track. We want you to be, as abundant as possible, as happy as possible. We want you to fulfill your soul contract. So Saturn gives us that energy that forces us to do that. And make sure that all of your past lifetimes are paid off in this lifetime. So it's going to force you to pay off that debt. It is stored in our root chakra. So basically every chakra, and there are different systems, but just to kind of keep it basic and really kind of simple, the 7 chakras each store basically like a computer. So the reason why people get like energy healing or like chakra balance, you might be like, well, why would people pay for a chakra balance? Or what would be the point of paying for a chakra balance? Basically, what happens is each chakra represents a computer. It's a bank, and it holds memory from past lives in present life, and it gets hold there. So where our karma gets stored is it's in the computer of the root chakra. So basically what happens with that root chakra is basically it holds our trust and our security. So if you look at Maslow's law, if you're like into psychology, or if you went to school for psychology, if you look at Maslow's laws of hierarchy, the very first one of those laws is physical safety, right? And our root chakra is the first chakra, and that represents kind of like Maslow's law. Basically, that root chakra represents our trust and our security. If we don't feel that we can trust our surroundings, if we don't feel safe, making sure we have shelter, we have food, we have everything that we need, and we're secure within ourselves, we can never evolve, right? So that's the reason why a lot of people will have karmic debt, is because it's stuck in their root chakra. And basically what will happen with the root chakra is it will become closed, or it will be very open, depending on if you actually paid off your karmic debt. And every lifetime, you'll have in the past is like stored in that root chakra. So basically your root chakra has a blueprint. In that blueprint, it knows everything. So you're working out, you could be having anxieties or stress about stuff that's not even happening in this lifetime because it's stored there. These experiences that we go throughout our life is here to make us better people, to make us conscious, to make us be able to get out of this system, to be like, I don't want to keep on learning this system. Like, I'm learning my lessons. I'm learning what I did wrong. I'm fixing my mistakes. I'm learning my trauma. So I don't have to keep on coming back down to earth. The soul work to get over our past karmic debt is very heavy. So our root chakra is very heavy, and that's why our soul sometimes doesn't want to deal with it, because it's a very heavy presence. It's like, oh, I have this, I have this, I have this, da da da. It feels so overwhelming because of the fact that we have this debt that we're carrying. And it keeps us from evolving. Our soul is to get us to evolve into God consciousness. So basically what our soul wants is just to evolve. Our soul just wants to be happy. Our soul's just like, dude, I want to be balling out of control. I want to be the badass manifester. I want to have love for myself. I want to be happy for myself. I want to be in God consciousness. I want to be in the vortex, basically. That's for manifestation. I want to be in the vortex where I'm not here on earth dealing with this meaningless little everyday petty commute, driving on the highway, waiting in line. I don't want to be in that type of like frequency. I want to be in God consciousness. That's the highest consciousness that you can get to. And that's the point of our soul, is to make us, it's forcing us to go into God consciousness because of this earth school that we're in. Even when we go up to the ether, so even when people pass over, like, because as you guys know, I'm a psychic medium and I connect to people who have crossed over, they still have work to do, okay? So depending on what you do in this lifetime, you don't get free. Okay, so a lot of people will think like, oh my God, like that's why people who will say, and I have nothing against this, and I hope this doesn't trigger anyone, people who commit suicide. They'll say, well, if you commit suicide, that's like the worst thing ever. And it's not necessarily that it's the worst thing ever. And I'm not, saying go kill yourself, because it's definitely not good. But basically, you just start off at day one. Okay, so basically you start off at day one if you commit suicide, and you have to work really hard, maybe not in earth, but you have jobs when you go to the ether and you die. The only time you don't have jobs when you die is if you learn all your lessons and you pay off all your debt. You don't have to continue to work, but you still work even when you're outside of earth, but depending on your level. Okay. To learn. So basically we decided to be born to certain parents. So the difference between psychology and spirituality, there's a huge difference. Some of the terminology sometimes will be similar, but they're not, like, it's apples and oranges. The difference between psychology and spirituality is that we choose this. In spirituality, we believe that we choose our parents. We believe that we choose the situations. It's not just environmental. So like psychology will say, oh, well, you're that way because of your environment, which could be true. There is truth to that. But it goes deeper in spirituality. We'll say, well, actually, a matter of fact, if we pull your astrology chart, even before you were born, we would know that you were going to have an abusive parent, okay? Even just based on your astrology chart. And you chose that to have that abusive parent or that situation so that you could involve your soul, because you needed to get rid of this debt so that you didn't have to keep on coming on earth. And the quickest way to get rid of your debt is by having an abusive parent. And I know it sounds so messed up, and it took me years to wrap my head around this concept just because of some of my own upbringing. This was a very triggering thing for me to accept and even have a conversation about in spirituality, because I was more on the psychology. I kind of vibed a little bit more with the psychology realm, but learning it and like actually communicating with these spirits and actually studying people's birth charts, I'm like, holy crap, this is actually real. And it does take a process. Like, you don't just get there automatically, but in spirituality, you're choosing a lot of these experiences so you can evolve. And it's to pay back. When the root chakra is closed and we're not like trusting people, and we're not feeling secure and things like that, basically it creates a lot of trauma. That's where shadow work will come in. We're going to talk briefly about shadow work, but we're not going to go completely into shadow work, but we will talk briefly about shadow work. Basically, we have all of this trauma, and because we need the trauma to evolve, because if our lives were perfect and everything was okay, why would we come down here on earth? Like, dude, if your life was going to be perfect and everything was going to be okay, you could have stayed chilling with the angels and chilling with God, because you have no karmic debt to pay, and you could have just been in heaven sipping your tea, having a good time, having conversations with God and his army. But you had debt to pay, so you had to come back. Let's talk about this. So, if the karmic debt isn't paid back, what we tell God, and this is what's believed in the spiritual community, you don't have to believe this stuff. Just take what resonates, learn about other people's culture. If you don't believe it, you don't believe it, and that's okay. But basically, in the spiritual community, we believe that we had a conversation with God, and we said, God, I want to do the best I can so I can evolve. So God says, okay, well, what can we do to make you evolve? Well, I'm going to sign a soul contract. And that soul contract is going to say I'm going to go through a lot of trauma. I'm going to pick maybe parents that are going to be abusive, or situations that aren't going to be supportive, or relationships, or I'm going to have financial hardships. And for these financial hardships that I might have, and this difficulty and this trauma, what I'm going to do to pay this off is I'm going to come down here and learn the spiritual meaning. I'm going to learn to disassociate with material things. I'm going to learn to disassociate even with family. Now, this is going to be you're going to say this is kind of weird. Disassociate with the needing of other human beings. I'm going to learn how to have such a close relationship with you and the spiritual world that I don't need another human. Because when we go to other realms, there's no such things as relationships. There's only relationships in earth. And that makes us very codependent. When we're in heaven or we're in these higher realms, we're so high vibration, we don't need other people. Like, we're very self-sufficient because we feel whole. We're not whole here on earth. We're always lacking. We're always like, I need a person, or I need clothes, or I need this type of job, or I need money. Like, we're constantly like, we're never really satisfied, right? But when we're in another realm, we're always satisfied. There's not a need to not be satisfied. So we basically can do this soul contract to say, you know what? I'm going to become so self-sufficient, and I'm going to love you so much and put you at the center of my life that I don't need anyone else. Okay? And that's going to be paying off some of your karmic debt, because you escape the material and the physical world, because the physical world tells you you're not whole by yourself. But the spiritual world says you are whole. You are a whole being. You was a whole being when I created you, and you're a whole being now. But we struggle with that, and we have ego, and we have fear, and we have all these things here on earth, right? So basically, how to release this karmic debt is by doing our shadow work, by doing an astrology reading to know, because if you have trauma or you have debt, chances of you figuring it all out on yourself is going to be really hard because you're not aware of it, right? A lot of this stuff is subconscious. So that's why in spirituality, we have so many tools. It's really freaking awesome. It's like a university of tools. And one of those tools that we have that can decode this stuff is astrology, okay, and numerology. Basically, we can look at your natal chart and discover this. So how you can correct this is A, doing a astrology reading to decode it. Also, doing your trauma. Understanding your trauma. Understanding your triggers, because your triggers are linked to your karma. Example of that. An example of your trigger is linked to your karma. Let me give an example. I need to give an example. My guides are telling me. I just want to make sure I give a good one. Okay. An example of that. They're showing me images right now. Okay. An example of your trauma is linked to your karma. Perfect one right here. A lot of you know that I talk about what happened at my last employer because it was a very traumatic experience for me. That was my karma. So me going through that karmic situation, like it was intense, it was heavy, it was triggering, it really upset me, okay, through that past employer. Well, I had to get to the point where I wasn't depending on other people. I saw my identity as what my boss said, which a lot of us do this, and it gets deep. A lot of us, since preschool, when we basically become institutionalized in this society, we go to preschool, we go to kindergarten. We tell you when to get up, we tell you when to sit down, unless you're in a private school, you know, you got money, you're in Montessori, they don't do that type of stuff, but you're going to government funding, government funding school programs, that's how it's run. We're going to tell you when to get up. We're going to tell you when to sit down. We're going to tell you when to go to the bathroom. And basically you start being in this system. And in that system, you learn how to survive, and you learn what gives you rewards and what gives a little 5-year-old rewards in a school system. Good behavior. You're being respectful. You're listening to the teacher. You're being obedient. So you get praise. And what does a little child want? A little child wants praise. I want my name on the board. I want to get that little sticker that says I'm getting a star. What does that do? That prepares us for the workforce. And then in the workforce, what do? We want to be obedient. And if we go out of the lines, let's say we have someone who's abusive over us, right? Because this happens. People get sexually assaulted at work. People get harassed. Things happen, right, that are violent. But there's this system in play in the work environment similar to school, where it's like if you go outside the lines, we have this club that we're all going to protect each other, because really we don't really actually truly care about you, but you're in this system and we fall for it. And what I fall for it, and it was my karmic debt that I had to get out of, is I had to fall out of, it doesn't matter what they say. Because what we do is we don't want to upset them. Why don't we want to upset our employer? They're in control of our money. We need resources to survive. So if something is abusive or something is wrong, how many people stand up and say, hey, they're actually going over there and abusing people. You're not going to stand up and say that a lot of the times because it affects your livelihood. It's going to affect if you're ever going to get a promotion. It's going to affect your duties. Maybe they're going to take duties away from you. Maybe they're going to take hours away from you. So you're trapped in this system that you really can't get out if you're not in a healthy system. So the karmic debt that I had was I had to be willing to go against the system, which is very hard to go against a system because you got many people piled up against you, like in slavery, okay? So if you choose to go against that system, there's going to be hell to pay. And by having that hell to pay, basically what's going to happen, how do I explain it? So basically what happened was I had to learn that God was going to provide for me, even if I had to go against Pharaoh, in a sense. Like the employer is like Pharaoh, right? They have their whole army, of lawyers, of supervisors, of CEOs, whatever. They have their whole army to kill you if you do anything that they don't like you doing. Okay, so you go against this whole system of Pharaoh. That's very hard. All right. So my karmic debt had to be that I was going to go against that system and that I was going to rely my faith on God and then be rewarded. So in our karmic lessons, a lot of us never learn this because we're stuck in our programming to society. I'm oppressed. I'm oppressed. You're in this oppression where you don't ever really even though we're a nation of Christianity here in the United States of America, we don't truly live in that mindset of God is going to provide for me. I can put my trust in God. Things are going to work out for me. Like, I don't have to be abused no matter what it's going to be, that there's this undoubtable faith that I have. And a lot of people can never get to that point. That's why they stay in abusive relationships. It's comfortable. Am I going to find another partner? Am I going to find another person? I'm going to stay in this abusive situation that I'm being oppressed over because you're never learning how to escape the matrix. You're feeling like, well, I need a relationship. My kids need their dad. I don't want to look like I don't want to, have this image or whatever. So you're constantly stuck in this cycle that it's extremely hard to escape. Okay. That could even be materialism. How many people in the United States of America file bankruptcy? I don't know the numbers, but I would probably say it's millions. Okay. Millions of people file bankruptcy every single year. Why are they filing bankruptcy every single year? How many homes get foreclosed on every single year in the United States of America? Because of karmic debt and because of the matrix. What happens? What's the definition of spirituality? Is that spirituality is the quality of being connected with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material and physical things. What is easy that all of us Americans do? Spend money to the point where we have credit cards. Max out your credit cards. I need to do this. I want to buy my kids this. I want to have this SUV. I want to do this. I want to go on this vacation. I want my kids to have the best clothes. I want them to have the best shoes. I want them to have this. We're stuck in that system. And what does it do? It oppresses us. Then we have to lose our credit. What happens when you don't have credit or you get your house foreclosed on? You may have a hard time of getting a house anytime in the near future. If your car gets repossessed, you're not going to be able to buy another car, right? It really does control every aspect of your life, these physical things that are in our reality at this moment, that we are in this matrix type situation. And it's extremely hard for us to get out of it because what do we see on TV? Or what do we do with social media? Look at them, them and their family, they're at the beach. I want to take my kids to the beach. Oh, look at them, they're doing that. I want to do that. We compare. So we have to keep on fueling this cycle. And what do? We create traumatized children because of it. Because if you're working all the time, if you're stressed out because your credit cards are maxed out, you have no money because you're following all this system and you're not being responsible, well, what happens? Your kids are going to develop stuff too. But we're not going to go all into that. But basically, with this karmic debt, how we're going to pay it off is by doing shadow work. So number one, we're going to pay it off by knowing what the heck it is, right? So we're going to look at our astrology chart and we're going to learn what it is. What are the lessons that I need to learn here? Then we're going to work on our trauma. What are some things that trigger us? So the shadow is any part of you that you do. Okay, the shadow is any part of you that you do not see, acknowledge, or accept. Let me just read this again and then we'll talk about this. The shadow is any part of you that you do not see, acknowledge, or accept. So basically with our shadow self so in psychology, again, psychology and spirituality is totally different, but sometimes similar, but really different. Psychology will say that you got your shadow self by your upbringing. Spirituality will say you got your shadow self because you chose your shadow self. So basically your shadow self is created by the oppression that you go through, by your triggers, by your upbringing, by relationships. And basically in adulthood, you're going to have all these triggers that are going to come out because your shadow isn't involved. So maybe something happens to you or whatever, and you start becoming extremely triggered. And you have to work out your shadow self in order to correct that and balance it, because you can't go to God consciousness to involve and escape and not have to keep on doing this cycle until you work out all these issues. So sometimes the people that you can tell are on their last lifetime, and I'm not saying this egotistical, is someone like me. And it doesn't look pretty, but it's actually true. How you can identify if someone is in their is in their last lifetime here on earth and they're going to finally evolve is someone who has the time, who has the commitment and the dedication to work out their bullshit. And I'm just going to say, I have to say it like that. And the reason why I have to say it like that is because the majority of people in America do not want to face their bull crap. Even if it's free, they don't want to face their bull crap. That could be the fact that they could go to an AA meeting for free. They choose not to. They could go to the library for free and read books. Maybe they could get state insurance, or maybe they could find a way to get insurance, to get a counselor. Maybe instead of spending all their extra money, they actually start investing into a life coach, or they start investing into spiritual retreats or things to involve their souls. But the majority of people that are going to have so many lifetimes of coming back down here on earth are going to be people who are spending their money on miscellaneous stuff, right? So they're stuck in what America wants. They're stuck in that debt trap. They're stuck in that paycheck to paycheck trap because they're constantly seeking more. They don't feel whole and complete. So they're not investing, even if it's free, time to be like, how can I heal these wounds that are bothering me? How can I evolve? How can I learn? How can I study? They stay so trapped in that, in the matrix, that they can't get out of the matrix. And the only way to get out of the matrix is to get out of debt. If you are controlled by debt, you cannot get out of the matrix. That's how you are controlled. You're controlled by your mortgage payment, by your rent, by your car, by your phone payment. And that gets very complicated on how you can get out of that system, because that's pretty much hard to really get out of that system. But you have to be willing to be a minimalist. If you don't already have tons of money in the bank and you're just rolling in the dough, and you got all kinds of money to just pay for life coaches, and you're just going down to Costa Rica, and you're going to India, you're going to Bali, you're doing eat, pray, love. you just rolling in the dough like that. If you're not a person who can be Julia Roberts and you just got some money laying aside in the bank, then you're going to have to make some huge adjustments in your life in order to really heal yourself, find out who you are as a person, and heal. And a lot of people in this lifetime, they might not be to that point. They don't have that sacrifice. They don't have that, what Eric Thompson calls that dog in you, where you just have this dog in you where you're like, I don't care. I have to get this. I don't care what I'm going to have to sacrifice. I have to get out of this situation. If you don't have that dog in you, or you're not Julia Roberts, then you're going to keep on coming down here on earth until you can escape that. So if you guys want to start the process with me, and I'm going to see if I have any questions, but if you want to start the process with me, you could start doing a karmic debt reading. I am offering karmic debt readings, which will get you started. And then I will be doing some classes. So like, you can click on my nose, look in the description. You could schedule a karmic debt reading. We could start evaluating that and just start getting you going. And if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to message me, and I would love to support you on this. Have a blessed day.